In a city where justice was for sale and the truth was buried by those in power, one man's wrongful arrest ignited a fire that would consume the corrupt from the inside out. Daniel Mercer was just a mechanic until two crooked detectives framed him for a crime he didn't commit. What they didn't know? He was the estranged son of Mayor Richard Hawthorne, the most powerful man in Crescent City. Now, Daniel must decide: protect the family name or burn the entire system to the ground. When the truth came out, the detectives fell, and Daniel walked free. Detectives Vince Crowe and Ray Dalton dominated the streets in the gloomy underbelly of Crescent City, where justice was a commodity and truth was negotiable. At that time, truth was a commodity. They were the masters of the frame game, which consisted of fabricating evidence, manipulating testimony, and allowing the system to consume yet another guilty individual. But instead of fading back into the shadows, he emerged as something new: the Ghost, a silent force exposing corruption, one dirty cop at a time. Daniel Mercer is a gentleman who is discreet and humble. He had no relatives and absolutely no contacts. Both Crowe and Dalton thought that he was flawless. Recently, a narcotics raid had gone awry, and their commander was looking for results from the operation. Yeah, you're Daniel Mercer's multi-mechanic, soon-to-be convicted felon. Therefore, the investigators did not hesitate when they discovered a bloodied knife and a hoard of stolen jewels that had appeared in Daniel's flat. The name Mercer belonged to my mother. Inquire about Daniel Hawthorne. But as he digs deeper, he uncovers a chilling truth: his own father is at the heart of it all. The one who was the owner of the police commissioner. Let us know where you are watching from, what time you found this video, and leave a like and a comment. Let's get back to the story. Something that the mayor had been extremely quiet about. Not with badges of honor, but with fists full of cash and falsehoods wrapped in red tape. What is their most recent objective? Daniel was a recluse who worked as a mechanic on the side and kept to himself. And it would not matter to him why they had framed Daniel. All that would matter was that they had. Laughing as they placed handcuffs on him, they brought him in and pulled him in. They believed that they were just another nobody. Another case has been resolved. It's too late. He's already aware of it. However, Daniel then did something that was not anticipated. Rather of pleading or breaking, he sat back in his chair, smiled, and declared, "I am not going to break." Fake arrests, evidence tampering, and even 2 murders that have not been solved were among the evidence that emerged from decades of corruption. "You guys really don't know who I am, do you?" Crowe laughed with disdain. Daniel let out a giggle. The temperature in the room dropped. The elderly guy had succeeded in obtaining every favor and pulling every string. For Hawthorne. I'm referring about Mayor Richard Hawthorne, who is the most influential person in the city. The perspiration began to develop on Crowe's hands. It was Dalton's cigarette that dropped out of his mouth. Even yet, the drug trade continued to thrive. Even so, there was no evidence found. However, there are still innocent individuals who find themselves incarcerated, their lives being exchanged for promotions and payoffs. The son of the mayor had recently been falsely accused. Moreover, Daniel was not just any son. He was the estranged son of the mayor, the one who had left his family's empire in order to lead a regular life. But what about now? At this point, the mayor would learn the truth. It was a scramble for Crowe and Dalton. They attempted to bribe Daniel, trashed data, and relied on witnesses to support their claims. "It will be 10 years for the kid, and we will receive our share," Crowe growled. "Name your price," and then continued. The cases were beautifully categorized, and witness testimonies were connected to them. Simply put, Daniel grinned. After then, the doors of the station suddenly opened. Not with the police, not with legal counsel, a personal security squad of the mayor, consisting of men dressed in black suits. He was sitting in his penthouse and gazing at it. It was revealed that the mayor had been monitoring his son for some time. At what point did Daniel get detained? According to the press, it is being referred to as a vigilante purge. The police union is requesting that action be taken. No one is even aware that it is him. Crowe and Dalton were not only suspended, but they were also indicted by the time dawn arrived. Is that Daniel? The judges will decide. Right? Individuals who prosecute? Perhaps much more so. He was able to escape, and he disappeared back into the darkness. On the other hand, with a word of caution, are you the next ones to attempt to frame me? Don't expect me to be that forgiving. And at this same moment, His own kid was ripping everything apart. In the underbelly of Crescent City, a new rumor began to circulate many months later. An unknown fixer was assisting the innocent individuals in evading corrupt law enforcement. People referred to him as the Ghost. And the two infamous detectives who are now languishing in prison, they were well aware of his identity. Are you so sure that this city is based on honesty, or I will no longer be able to defend you? Crescent City has seen some changes after the fall of Crow and Dalton, but those changes were not sufficient. Despite the fact that the mayor had made a public display of cleaning up the police department, the corruption was not limited to just two shady detectives. Daniel Hawthorne, who was once an unassuming mechanic, but is now a whispered legend, observed from the shadows everything that was going on. There was a time when he had defied his father's world. At this point, he was going to set fire to it. When Officer Garrett, a pompous evidence clerk who was renowned for interfering with narcotics cases, woke up to his own voice on the news, it was the first indication that something was awry. "It is a recording." "Yeah, just change the labels," she said. "Even the lab won't examine it." Garrett had been placed in handcuffs at midday. When Detective Ruiz arrived at his place of employment, he saw that every case that he had ever fabricated was plainly displayed on his desk. The Internal Affairs Department was unable to enter his office since he quit. Bank transfers. The recording of voices. Crooked law enforcement officers were eliminated one by one. And what is the only hint? A little silver Hawthorne pin was left behind at each of the scenes. The message was unmistakable. There was a hunt going on here. There was a pin on Mayor Richard Hawthorne's desk, and it was the same pin that had been placed at the murder sites. A reporter named Alina Reyes was there, holding a camera in her hand. Over a long period of time before he had, she had been investigating the corruption. He used his son's calling card. Throat clearing was performed by his chief of staff. An exhalation of smoke from the mayor's cigar was heard. "Who is to blame but you do?" She strained her voice. "If this continues, it won't just be dirty cops who fall," the speaker said. She did not complete the task. He didn't require her to do that. With the help of secrets, the Hawthorne family had constructed Crescent City. The old mechanic shop, where Daniel had worked in the past, was where they first met. Not a single bodyguard was brought by the mayor. There were no firearms brought by Daniel. Only two guys, and a lifetime of words that have never been said. At that moment, the mayor said, "You are exposing the wrong people." Daniel gave a smirk. "It's funny. I did not realize that they were crooks." "Those are our people," the mayor yelled out in a frenzy. Arms crossed, Daniel leaned against a rusty automobile and leaned on it. "You're scared?" With a scowl, the mayor said, "I am realistic. This is the end of it." Daniel's laughter was icy and piercing. "You never did." 2 nights later, Daniel was successful in breaking into the private server of the police chief. Corruption was not the only thing that he discovered. The list was a hit list. The names of every law enforcement officer, judge, and official who was under investigation. And at the very top, "This is Richard Hawthorne, the mayor." It wasn't only that his father was involved. That man was the kingpin. Daniel ought to have been filled with wrath. The act of betraying. On the contrary, he experienced, at this point, he was free to speak his mind. On the next morning, each and every screen in Crescent City began to flash with life. Electronic mail. Live broadcasting of a decade's worth of falsehoods. Around midday, the mayor was taken into custody. As the sun began to set, the head of police surrendered himself in. In the midst of the mayhem that was sweeping over the city, Daniel Hawthorne was seeing the sunset from a rooftop. Behind him, he heard a voice that said, "You know they'll come for you next." He made a turn. Gabriel gave a shrug. "Let them try." She gave a sneer. "What now, ghost?" He took a glance at the city, which was shattered and bleeding yet was at last awake. "Now," he went on to say, "we rebuild."